Excuse me. Good morning. Hey. Wow. First thing in the morning, and I'm choking on my water. Guys, welcome back to another episode of Common Ground, a morning show podcast. I am your host, Alex Gettlin.
I'm your more together host, Rachel LaForce.
Sorry, I was trying to hydrate pre-start.
Can we talk about, so really quick, so this happens from time to time. Alex will take a sip of water and choke. What's happening? Are you just like guzzling it down too quickly?
I think it went too fast. I'm sorry. Anyway, guys, we are live every morning, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m.
Every Monday morning.
Every Monday.
Don't come back tomorrow. We won't be here.
Every Monday morning. For now, we might do it every day
Sure.
at some point, when we get our sponsors out and everything. Make that money, baby. On that note, if you like this show, tell your friends, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. We're trying to make a living doing this podcast thing. But we're here every Monday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. So if you're on the West Coast, a little morning start, If you're on the East Coast, a little afternoon lunch.
Delight.
Yeah, afternoon delight. Watch it during your lunch. If you live overseas, whatever time it is, you can watch it then. We've got our engineer, Scott, here with us.
Scotty Young.
Okay, well, he's...
How's it going?
Okay, there we go. There we go.
We wanted
Yep.
to let him shout out. But, guys, Scott is watching the comments. So if you guys are on Facebook... I think there's a way you can comment on YouTube, but just do it on Facebook. It's easier. If you want to chime in, participate with us. Last week, I was kind of watching the comments on my phone, but I realized it kind of took me out of the conversation. So we just gave Scott more work to do. He is working hard to make sure that this show is successful.
Eventually, you guys are going to have to pay me something, but...
Yes, so we will have to start paying Scott. So on that note, please like, subscribe, share, get our numbers up. Help us get some sponsors for this podcast.
That was I think a very comprehensive, perhaps too long intro.
No, they need to know. And last thing,
I feel like we got it.
If you didn't know, if this is your first episode by chance, we are married
For today.
to each other.
Yep.
We're both comedians.
That will always be true.
And we have very different views on the world, but the same values, I think, is what we've kind of come to, right? Is the same values, different perspectives? Is that the thing?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's times that you will bring something to my attention and immediately I'm like, should I shut this conversation down before it starts? Because otherwise we could debate on this until the sun comes up.
That happened the other day.
I know.
Well, let's table that for a second.
Okay. It was a little traumatic. I feel like I'm still adjusting from it.
It was traumatic? Okay.
I mean, you can't judge my trauma, so...
Okay. Anyway, so last night was the Super Bowl. We're not really sports people, we both enjoy
I love a good occasion. So if the occasion happens to be like sports,
sure.
I'm into it.
I was going to say we both really appreciate supreme athleticism and just drive and work ethic, But what? What's
That's
that face
just
for?
such an Alex Gettlin answer.
Why? What?
No, you're right. I mean, I don't think yes, I can appreciate athleticism. When I was really struggling with stage fright that came out of nowhere after a decade of doing comedy, I started reading more about sports psychology of how to just mentally prepare yourself for any situation.
Sure.
So it was the first time where I was like, oh, high level performance and high level athleticism do have a lot in common in many ways. So I appreciate it on that aspect.
You could say there's common ground between the two.
Okay, too early. Keep going.
So anyway, I figured out how to get the Super Bowl on our TV because we don't have cable. We just, use streaming and whatnot.
Yeah, we're not weird.
Well, I will say it is funny now. Why would anyone have cable?
So many people still have cable.
But I mean, you can get CBS, Fox, NBC, all the channel, every channel that you would want. You can now a la carte your menu.
I know, but for folks like my parents and, either it's a generational thing or a colloquial thing, but there's still plenty of people who I would actually say commonly the most people who I know who still have cable. You want to know why they keep it?
Why?
So that they have Bravo.
Dude, that is very sad. Anyway, so we watched the Super Bowl because we're figured hey, listen, we're not a pop culture-y type show. We more talk about current events and news and politics and things like that. But it's, a major institutions. We figured let's just watch it.
I would say that the Super Bowl is a current event more than
current event, sure, but we don't do Like, remember when like Janet Jackson had her boob pop out? Like, that's not we don't care about that stuff typically, right?
I mean, I would love for something so innocent as that to happen, and just like I feel like everything is so chaotic and again, this is the buzzword for today, like traumatic that's happening, that like part of me was so bored by like what a boring Super Bowl.
Sure. Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
the Chiefs just got desecrated, you know.
I think decimated is the right word. Desecrated is like you desecrate something sacred. You decimate something when you like kick its ass.
Oh, okay. Well, there we go. We're all learning.
Yeah, but either way, is that right? Do you know, Scott?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, see, there, one for me.
Wow,
Yeah,
one
I
for
like
you.
how you use desecrated. Even more intense.
If you guys have a thought on if it's decimated, desecrated, you can comment live right now on Facebook. Follow Common Ground Morning Show. Engineer Scott is watching the comments. Okay. Anyway, but what?
I don't know where you came from this morning. Okay.
I'm just trying to get the live feature
I
rolling.
can tell. Yeah. I mean, listen, I love it. I love it.
But yeah, the funniest thing was like, I mean, I've never really cared about the Super Bowl halftime show. Like, it's just kind of like all right, it happens every year, whatever. But I think they've just got progressively more lame.
But sometimes they're not. Like, I think Paul McCartney played a couple years back, and like that was super exciting. But normally, like, even one year, I think it was like the Black Eyed Peas or something that I care nothing about, but it's always mashups.
Sure.
So I kept waiting, like every time, like, something would open, I'm like, oh, who's coming? And then I was like, it's just more of the weekend. Okay, here we are. Now, can I share this with you?
Sure.
So as I'm doing the scroll on the IG, as I do, apparently, now this is a friend of mine who is very conservative, homeschools her children, Christian values, etc. Really enjoy really do enjoy her. We have very different opinions on certain things.
Sure.
So, but what I saw this morning was apparently that there's like this whole thing that he was sending.
He being the weekend.
Yes. Through his imagery was really signaling to Satanists that he is a Satanist.
From his halftime show.
That was what this whole thread was about.
What was her? God damn it! I mean, I love these people, but I also can't stand them. What was her logic?
Well, it makes me sad because I know her heart is in the right place.
Sure.
And I think she's such like a beautiful person, and and all these things. But when I see that, sometimes I just want to go, I'm sorry, can we just talk? Do you have like 5 minutes? Can I just jump on the phone? Like, what are you talking about? So apparently all of the words that were popping up, when he was doing that weird, fisheye camera thing, and you were like, this is bizarre.
All right. When you look, that to me reminded me of like every time I was drunk in a bar during college trying to find the bathroom.
Yeah.
It's just like lights and you're like stumbling and there's like all these people bumping into you and you're like, where is it?
It was just nothing about it sparked like, ooh, fun when watching that. So apparently all the words and things that were popping up somehow were, and because it was all red. And again, this is like a whole thing of like, you could literally Google this and find the actual answer. So apparently he had been doing this thing, which this is also super bizarre, but he'd been doing this thing called The Character, where he had been bandaging his face and then wearing all these prosthetics.
Right.
And it was his whole thing about that Hollywood wants people to look a certain way.
Sure.
So, I mean, felt very theatrical, almost like Joaquin Phoenix in a way of like, I'm going to create this whole other character. So apparently that was the whole bit behind his damaged face and all these things. So apparently the cover of his latest album is his face all beat up, which was the whole thing about the character. But now these people are saying that this is him showing more satanic. Like, I was just like, these are quick Google searches.
Yeah,
to me, it just bums me out because I'm like, listen, folks like you and I look at the world differently, but I also believe that your heart is in the right place and you are doing a lot of good. And I just hate when I see people spending that much energy on something that's like bogus.
Sure. Yeah.
Like factually bogus.
It just... Yeah, there's so many thoughts, but I don't care enough about the Satanist thing to pick it apart. But what I did find interesting,
I mean, that's how I felt.
yeah,
When I read it, I'm like, I want to talk about this, and at the same time, I'm like, who cares?
Well,
this is the
it's-
most absurd thing.
it's one of those things. This happens a lot where people like you just have to stop and be like, you know what? Sure, you can have this one, and you just move on with your life because it's just not worth it.
I feel that way about so many things now. I would say it's the best thing that 2020 did to me is it
Yeah.
broke me down. You know? Now when people say absurd things that used to just trigger me, now I'm like, good for you. And then, you know what I mean? I literally don't have time. I do. I have
But-
nothing but time, but also I have no energy
Yeah.
to respond.
Well, okay, so hold on. I was going back to the Super Bowl halftime show. I found out not only do the artists not get paid for that halftime show, often they put their own money.
Yeah, he
in.
paid $7 million.
You saw this too, yeah. Because I guess the thought is like it'll help record sales. And now, last year, J-Lo and Shakira apparently had a huge spike in their numbers for downloads and record sales and stuff like that. But you know, that is insane to me that like it just shows you like when an institution is powerful enough, they can just wield like so. For example, the NFL clearly could have, or CBS, the two of them, right? They could clearly afford to pay The Weeknd to do this halftime show. But they know there's enough artists out there who are like, no, I'll do it for free. In fact, I'll pay for it. It's like, even when you get to that level of success of The Weeknd, they're still like, no.
But also, like, excuse me, but like, fuck the NFL.
Sure.
I'm so over it. It's such.
You hear that,
It
NFL?
is. Fuck you. It's such bullshit. Like all this stuff, like where they came out and they did all this of like.
A cursing morning show, by the way. Just to,
Yeah, good morning. You know, it pisses me off. It's like, you know, especially it's like we're an American institution. It's like, yeah, if we believe in your America,
Yeah.
like just the
Sure.
whole thing with Colin Kaepernick and all of that, and then for them to come out and be like, it's just such bullshit. Or even to be like, oh, we care about the pandemic, and then still throw like 50,000 people together in this stadium. I don't know. I'm just like.
I think that was less the NFL and more the state of Florida because, well, it was both
Well, we
of them.
all know the state of Florida. You know what I mean? Like we all.
I like Florida. You know, actually, I'm pro Florida in this.
Well, I know. I more hate the NFL. Or let me back up. I don't hate the NFL, but at this point, I
No,
can't
you said
stand.
it. They will never
No,
sponsor our
here's
podcast.
the thing. First of all, if that happened,
There-
things have gone
There goes-
completely awry.
There goes
okay?
that sweet NFL money.
I would just love if forever what if just to try to get the NFL back, you know, like if we had them as a sponsor, then it was like, you know, comedian and host Rachel LaForce like goes against the NFL and loses sponsorships, you know, and we're just hemorrhaging all these sponsors. So I just wear full NFL gear every day for like the podcast.
That's so funny. Well, you know what I totally could see as
is
a
funny.
thing. Let's say in another world, the NFL is like, all right, we're trying to branch out to our fan base. We're trying to like get people that are super sports fans, more casual sports fans, want to tap into that like suburban mom demo.
Oh, you mean by making pink camouflage jerseys and being like, that'll rope them in?
Well, no, I was going to say it'd be funny to have Tracy as like a sideline commentator, right? Like,
Oh my God.
Like-
I would love nothing more. Having Tracy be able to.
what would Tracy say to Tom Brady? She's interviewing Tom Brady. He's the most now winning, successful NFL player of all time, 7 championships.
I mean, I would also just be like, are you boring? Because to me, he bores the pants off of me. He does. I think people are like, oh, he's so handsome. I'm like, he's boring looking. He doesn't. I mean, listen, I know it's easy of like just
boring
to-
looking. He is a stud. He is beautiful.
But I'm saying, but that's the thing to me is like he looks like the everyman. There's nothing interesting to me about his face. There's nothing.
You need someone more like an Idris Elba, right?
Yeah,
Or
I
like-
want somebody with like character on their face. I don't know. To me, listen, and I'm not taking away from like the athleticism and the drive that it takes to achieve. I mean, the achievement is one thing, but separating the achievement from, I don't know. He just said derp derp. Like that's what I think. Like when I look at him, just derp. That's all I hear.
I have one other question, then we'll stop talking. Or we can move on from Super Bowl, unless you wanted to keep.
No, I want to keep just shitting on everyone.
Well, so this is what I'm gonna. So I'll set it up by what I'm about to talk about. This is one of those things where I roll my eyes, like whatever, dude. But maybe it is important. I don't know. I'll preface saying maybe I'm wrong here. But they're like, we've got the first female ref, and it's like, okay, like as a woman, does that make you feel special?
I don't think it makes me feel special, but I think we should acknowledge when firsts are happening. I think I'm more tired for the fact that it's 2021 and we're still having to say first female blank.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like I'm equally grateful and excited that there's movement, and for, you know, girls that are very invested in sports or things like that now see that that's a dream that can be realized.
Sure.
But then at the same time, it's like, I'm tired, you know?
I guess to me, if it was like when we have our first female president.
I felt bad because the first thing I thought when I saw her was, she's got great hair.
Okay. That's it?
I'm just saying, I wish that it was something that wasn't vain, that I could have been like, what drive it takes to get there. The first thing I thought was, beautiful ponytail.
Interesting.
Golden locks.
I also got to say, you know, I mean, most people, it's kind of like a joke. Like, I love the commercials, but like you and I
They were bad.
We audition for commercials somewhat regularly, so we look at them a little
Most
differently.
of which are bad.
Yeah.
I will still take all of that commercial money, though.
Better, but at least they weren't laying into the, like, Pepsi, we're going to solve racism this year. Remember when they did that shit last year?
Yeah, that was awful. That
Yeah.
wasn't last year. Was that 2000? I think that was 2019.
It might have been. It was in recent history.
It was such a bad move.
Yeah.
The worst of it was picking the most uninvolved white woman to be the one that's like, here's the Pepsi. Like, that was the handoff. Was it Kylie Jenner or Kendall Jenner?
I think it was Kendall.
Was it?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Is there a difference? But you know what?
I mean, I think so. I think picking Kylie Jenner is significantly more tone deaf than Kendall.
I will. What's the difference?
I think Kendall's the only one that's sane
I don't
in that
even-
family.
Okay. I don't know enough about them to even comment.
I don't either. Just saying.
Okay. But I will say, I'll give a shout out to my.
I don't have to know things to have opinions. That's something else I learned.
Well, that is true for most people in this country.
That's
you
true.
know?
Maybe I'm more of an American than I think I am.
Yeah. That's probably the most American thing you could say. It's like, I don't have to be informed. I just have opinions.
Yep. I'm actually surprised that's not a slogan for a news channel yet.
Lots of opinions, low information.
Yeah.
That's like a parody news. That would be like a bit on like Parks and Rec or
Yeah.
something, like the news
I mean,
channel
because
they
the
watch.
fact, here's how I know that confidence works,
Yeah.
right? If you are confident enough, anybody will buy in. For the fact that Fox News, their slogan is still fair and balanced.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
that's
mean?
fair. Yeah, sure. I know. I see your point. That's funny. It's like you just say it enough, people will believe it.
Yeah.
I will give a shout out though to my friend and yours, Dylan Krasinski, who also happens to be our attorney. He had I
love you.
don't remember the exact phrasing, but he had something hilarious where it was something to the effect of like, well, I guess Mayo really did find the perfect spokesperson with Amy Schumer.
Mm-hmm.
Just, you know, like she really is like, yep, just a jar of mayo. That's
I've actually come around. I quite like
her.
Amy Schumer
Because-
now.
Oh,
This all the
Drop my
time,
water
every
bottle.
day.
I'm a little clumsy.
I mean, a little,
You know what I found?
just a bowl in a china shop. Anywhere we go.
This is what I've learned about you, LaForce, is that you might have an opinion on someone, and then if someone puts together a well-produced documentary, you're in love. Doesn't matter who it is. Tiger Woods, AOC.
To be fair, I'm not in love with Tiger Woods, but
Or you have a new heart, you're like, oh
no, I have a new understanding. I understand it now. But then I'm still angry that nobody talked about generational trauma and how that actually affects our actions. And it's not like, I mean, none of his actions are okay, and none of them should be, but just this easy where it's like, oh, well, like this is why he did this thing. Anyway, if you want to talk about the Tiger Woods HBO documentary, DM me.
But I just thought it was funny that like you watched this documentary and I have no issue with Amy Schumer. I mean, you know, she's funny enough. I mean, I don't love her style of stand-up, but she's infinitely more successful than I am.
Well, I mean, I think we talk about this all the time. Like, I mean, I think she's funny. Like, obviously, like, I understand. I think she knows how to write jokes, like, things like that.
Yeah.
She's not my type of performer.
Right.
But her drive and work ethic was so like, the long story short, she has this documentary. It's quite old now, called Expecting Amy, about her pregnancy, also on HBO. And I watched, I mean, if there is a documentary about pregnant people, I'm going to watch it.
Well,
It's all I'm watching these days.
I'm learning a lot about. Also, I'm learning about pregnancy from.
Well, can I just finish really
Sure.
quick? So the whole bit, she had what's called I don't remember the condition she had. It's very, very uncommon, but basically you are sick through your entire pregnancy. So you're throwing up basically your entire pregnancy, sometimes multiple times
Yeah,
a day.
thank God you don't have that.
I mean, that was the thing she said. She's like, I don't know how people who didn't have resources, like when there were really bad days, she could go and get an IV or have a nurse come to her home or things like. She's like, I don't know how anyone without resources is able to handle this. And what was really sad is I learned that, around Freud's time, that they would blame women and be like, well, this is happening to you because subconsciously you don't want this baby.
Yeah.
And now as a pregnant person, like I could not imagine being told that and people genuinely believing that when like you're just want your baby to get here safely. And there are no jokes in this part of the show. I mean, just
I'm thinking of some, but they're gonna make you upset. So.
it's so thank you, save them and tell them on your other podcast. And anyway,
let me be clear, just me. Solo, doing my thing. You can tune in. Just look up Alex Gettlin on Spotify.
if you like rants and libertarian slants, watch.
Hey, that was good.
Yep. I'm full of
You
them.
know what? I'm interviewing our friend Kevin Dalton soon on the podcast. So,
Yeah, running for mayor in 2022.
Yeah, apparently he hasn't officially announced his candidacy yet, so we're not supposed to say it. Like,
Okay. Oh, well, don't save it. You're going to talk to him on your podcast.
Well, wait, can I?
Yeah, I was just saying that what was cool about her documentary was basically she was planning and preparing the content for her tour while enduring this very high intensity pregnancy and just what that was like and this balance of that I also feel of like being so ready and connected to your baby and wanting to be a mom and also having this other part of you that very much is you, which is a performer, an expresser, and watching her balance those two things was really cool. Also, she like edited and produced and like shot the whole thing. So anybody who's like, a one-man band, I'm here for.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, you and I certainly appreciate that. Well, it's interesting. So, okay, so now we're watching, I'm kind of watching it off and on when you're having it on TV. But the documentary about Serena Williams being pregnant when she was, in the height of her career as a, tennis pro, obviously. And it's interesting because we're watching it and then you just keep hitting with these waves of like, I just can't wait to meet Jonah. He's just my favorite guy in the whole world. And like, I'm obviously excited to have our son born, but like it's just so interesting because he's inside of your body right now, growing. Yeah. So you have such a different connection to this kid than I do. Like, I'm like...
Our kid. Yeah.
Yes, our child, our baby. What I mean, God, does it matter how I define... like?
No, but it's my job to call you out.
Okay. Anyway, to me, it's... I don't know. It's just very different how I feel than how you feel. I have no, like... I'm not excited anyway, but I'm like, cool, man. Yeah, like, when he gets here, we'll, do our thing.
Isn't that always how we come to the plate on things?
You and me specifically?
Yeah. I mean, I'm always so attached to the journey or to the outcome. And you're like, yeah, I mean, it'll be fine. Like, I feel like planning the wedding.
It's true.
I care about, wedding.
I care about the result way more than the journey. And you're like, take it in, grow, feel your soul through the process. And I'm like, yeah, but like, what is this going to become in the end? What is the outcome? That's my...
Well, spoiler, the outcome is a baby boy. So,
which is amazing, but it's just so funny that like I hear you talk to him and it's cute, but it's like I'm happy to talk to your belly, but I'm still a little bit like, I mean, he won't even understand me when he's like 2 months old.
Sure. I think the thought is more, or from what I'm reading, what I'm understanding is there are attachments and bonding beyond our kind of like level of comprehension. So it's like they do recognize like sound and the same sound. So the more I'm like, good morning, like it's your mom.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Actually,
that is the voice that I use when talking to him. So it's those things and for me, it's also just the reminder because I was saying I spend so much time in my head that one of, I don't know, maybe this is like selfish or something, but like one of the most grounding things about being pregnant is that I'm always in my body. because normally sometimes I go an entire day
Yeah.
and be so in my head about what I'm doing,
Right.
and I could be physically using my body all day.
Yeah.
And then it's not until either like I'm, either exercising, so you're using your body, or like showering or something where you're really connecting, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm like in a body. I've been in my head all day. So
Well,
knowing he's here and like it adjusts, I mean, I'm out of breath all the time. Like
okay, so actually I'm going to correct myself for a second on that note. Or not correct myself, but I have
you should correct yourself.
gotten, okay, yes, I understand. Your job is to, I'm going to correct you when you say,
It's a joke.
I know. It's fine. Jesus. What I'm trying to say here is that I do have a better understanding of to what degree our son, probably even as a fetus now in your belly, does and will just start to recognize like tone and things like that because of our dog Mila. Because I used to be very like, dogs don't know anything. You give them treats, they poop, and that's it. But like, I've living with her for like 2 months now. When did we move in? Yeah, about a month and change. And like you and I will just be talking, and we'll just like speak about something that relates to her, and she's like, "Oh, you mentioned me?" It's like this weird instinctual thing. Even in the morning, so I wake up way earlier than Scott and Rachel. I'm just more productive than them. I care more about getting in hours of the day. I'm a better person. No, I'm kidding. I just happen to wake up early.
That's the story.
But so I'm always the first one down there. So sometimes if I have extra time in the morning, I'll take her on a morning walk. And like, it's so weird because I don't tell her we're going on a walk. I just start to like put my hoodie on and grab things, and she'll just instinctually know I'm going on a walk, and she'll like start running in circles, and I don't. It's so bizarre. It's like,
well, they're patterns and instincts, but that's what I told you because you were like, it's so crazy that like she knows, and I'm like, yeah, but also
because she's a dog. It's like
right, but you have to remember that the only reason that humans have the ability of like, for lack of a better word, intricate thinking in the way that we do is because our brains have evolved.
Yeah.
Animals' whole survival is based off of instincts and
Right.
pattern. It's evidence-based.
Yeah.
So if like a dingo goes out into the wild at a certain time of day, knowing that this like pack is nearby, they're probably going to get eaten. If every time they've gone out and somebody in their pack has gotten eaten, they know not to go out at that time.
Right.
They're learning through pattern. So the same thing, if like you're the first person who comes down in the morning and you have this routine of getting ready, she's clocking that pattern. I'm the dog whisperer, by the way. Know lots about dogs, and but it's pattern based.
Yeah.
And it's also it's tone, because also we all have different like little voices that we use when talking to her. But my favorite is if you're either giving me a lot of affection and she'll like jump up in the middle of us.
Yeah.
That's my favorite.
Oh, and she's like, no, pay attention to me. It's just, having a dog is dope, dude. I mean, really, she's Scott's dog, but we all live together, so it's our family dog until, I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine in like 10 years we'll all still be in the same. Well, maybe. I don't know. Maybe we'll all be all in the same house in 10 years.
Not.
But for now, she's our dog, So just on that, it's given me, because, obviously now I'm starting to think about like just all the little things of when I'm a dad, like even something that, we talk about a lot, but like when Jonah needs our attention, and whoever our next child is, when he or she needs our attention, the phone has to go down, and you have to, not immediately, especially when they're a little bit older, you can be like, give me a second.
This is really your main parenting concern. It's the only thing you've brought up.
Because I think it's going to really screw up this generation of children seeing mommy and daddy are like, hold on, and their phone, because like we're already so programmed to like live in the phone or whatever new technology becomes. You don't want to teach a child, hey, this is the most important thing. Your needs and wants come second to this.
Well, it's boundaries, like anything else.
I don't think that's
Phones,
so crazy to.
I'm not saying that.
Well, you did. You kind of were like, that's your main concern.
Well, no, it's interesting because sometimes you're like a dog with a bone with something. Once you get stuck on something, that's the thing until you find something else, and then something else is the thing. And Scott is nodding, and he's lived with you longer than I have.
Yeah, great. That's it. And sometimes that bone is really important, and you should not let go of it.
No, I agree. I agree. I think that that's very important. But again, for me, that goes back to setting boundaries, talking, because you and I will non-negotiably always have not always have a phone in our hand, but meaning like, our work is connected to our phones with social media, with things like that, with different meetings. We always have things going on. So to set this expectation of like, we're not like no phone Mondays or whatever, like these things are that depending on people's lifestyle, they can do differently. For me, it's as simple as, and it's also like as your kids get older and those things of like, you can describe boundaries differently or like describe like mom or dad's attention with the phone and what makes that different versus my attention to like my kid. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, kids aren't stupid and they pick up way more than that you think that they do.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is communicate. And so much of that communication is asking them how they feel.
Mm-hmm.
What do they, I mean, that's such the thing. Like people are like, treat kids. And I've seen it through my, small amount of time with teaching. It's like, even that's true of like really good teachers. When you're asking them what they think, how they feel, and they feel more present and open to be able to like express what's going on with them, it's way easier to come to some sort of understanding or negotiation. You're also in the same way of like you're empowering them to make better choices,
right?
To have a thought about consequences and things like that. I also haven't had a kid yet, so check me in 3 years. But
that makes a lot of sense.
I was telling you about there's that like. I started following all these new like mommy pages on Instagram and stuff, like the good ones, not like, here's me and my 4 kids. And I'm like, how tired are they of taking pictures with you in fields? You know what I mean?
Oh,
like the mommy blogs where it's just they're all wearing the same pattern and they're just like, now we're on a horse and now we're in downtown.
I mean, that's
kind
of one of the...
Dude, you're just trekking your children around to take photos with you?
That's funny. Well, it's just a new version of the stage mom.
It's psychotic.
But also it is, but at the same time, like I remember there were times when we were kids and our mom had to like run errands all day and we had to stay with her because like for whatever reason she needed us to like be with her that day.
Yeah, because she's a working mom and that's,
Well, maybe they're a working mom. If that's how she earns her living.
I know, but making your living also off of, I mean, I know this is like today is just Rachel tells everybody why she is better than them.
It's very off-brand for you.
But sometimes you gotta blow off steam. I'm just saying, I think like when I'm just watching all of those and I'm like, gosh, the time and energy it takes to do all of that. I don't know. It just feels very self-serving, I guess, rather than, I don't know, like letting your kids be kids to be like, my mommy blog.
No, I get that. That is, that there is something about it. I get what you're saying. That feels gross. It's a fine line though, because so much, even for people like you and I who are like building careers as podcaster, comedian, etc. Like there is a world where people like they want to know about you and your life and your family and
Right, but genuine sharing to me is different than having an entire feed full of like these monochromatic photos of you and your 4 children, like taking pictures in fake snow.
So
it's weird.
I want to pivot for a second.
Can I say one more thing about kids?
Yes.
But one of the pages that I follow that is really good, I think it's called like Big Little Feelings or something. And
Big Little Feelings.
But it's 2 moms and they talk about like how to have like toddlers essentially. And like, if a toddler's having a breakdown, like what do you do? And it's all these like kind of negotiation. And the biggest thing is they're like, you have to prep them over and over of letting them know, here is what's going to be happening. Here's what we're going to do when we get there, so that they really understand, because they were talking about like, how do you take a toddler who has to wear a mask through an airport? It was like, prep them, talk about it over and over, practice at home. But then that was the other thing of,
I'm just thinking about taking our kids through fussy kids through the airport.
Just listen. That's going to be a whole different tangent. Stay with me.
Okay.
So, the idea of like, ready for bedtime. Okay, so now we're in 15 minutes. We're going to do a calming, something that calms us down together. And just all of this, basically what it is continued continual communication.
Yeah.
And I was like, I feel like that's applicable for adults.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Like the whole thing, I'm like, oh, you mean just the way we should be communicating?
Yeah.
Like that is the thing that makes me the most crazy about corporate environments or anything where you're productions when you're working with large groups of people is the inability for people to either communicate and or to listen.
Mm-hmm.
It's baffling to me. It is absolutely baffling to me that I'm like, it's the most inherent skill you have. Like, sure, like clear communication and things like that and different communication skills, they are skills, but also like, it's not like learning how to Photoshop.
You know, on that note of communication, you had an interesting experience. You've got your first, I mean, not your first, but a new reoccurring troll on your Instagram account.
Oh, yeah.
You got some real online hatred going.
Oh, man. Yeah.
I meant to bring this up earlier. I'm glad I remembered.
Oh, like Bobby Lee Tattoo or something? I don't know. So anyway.
Bobby Lee is like a great comment.
I know, but it's Bobby something tattoo. I don't know. And I don't even care enough to look it up. But it was so funny. So I've been running sponsored ads on Instagram for my personal page because I'm getting ready to transfer.
Give your girl a follow.
Give your girl a follow. I've been planning to kind of take all this LaForce Awakens content and I'm going to move it to its own Instagram account. So that way, because I've got all of like comedy stuff on my page too. So what I'm doing is kind of getting lost in translation. So I was realizing I really need to create its own channel so it can live by itself. But in the meantime, I'm still running some of these sponsored ads, mostly so I can see what are people attracted to.
Yeah.
I can run different ads and I can see like, okay, this message is working. These colors are working, right? So for me, it is where it's drawing more eyes on the projects I'm working on. And then also it's really just informing me about what people are interested in, right? So, but occasionally people, you know, like Bobby, got nothing better to do. And so I had this whole like affirmation thing because like, you know, your girl loves a good mantra. And it was like, you know,
I mean, who doesn't, right?
I am strength, I am love, blah, blah. I don't know. It was a thing I wrote to myself like 2 years ago and I found in a drawer and I was like, I feel like I need to share this. Most people have enjoyed it. Not Bobby. He wrote, you forgot to add your lame, which was the most beautiful trolling because he wasn't like a total asshole. You know what I mean?
He
like,
wasn't vulgar.
Yeah. Just, you forgot to say you're lame. And it tickled me so much. And I just wrote back, I knew I forgot something. Thank you. And then 2 days later, he responded.
2 days? Wow.
He responded, well, I don't think he's a regular,
okay.
I checked his feed.
He's like a hobbyist troller.
I think so. And so he checked back in, though. He wasn't going to let me go. And he said, he was like, oh, yeah, narcissistic people who run their own ads get special treatment. And I thought that was nice because I really felt seen, which means he remembered me. You know what I mean? He was labeling me. He's thought about me. Do you know what I mean? And so I responded, I feel honored. And then that's what it was. The first thing he said was narcissistic people get special treatment or something. And I said, I feel honored. And then he responded again. And then I was like, should I just let this lie? And I said, I want to see how long this will go. So then I just responded, honestly, I just want to see how long we can do this. He's not responded yet, but I have faith it's not done. I think he's going to come back.
Bobby, if you see this, please respond. In fact, you are not invited on the podcast, but we will, if they're not vulgar, read all of your comments back to Rachel.
I mean, I was just sad. You know, he's got a nice tattoo thing going on, but I was like, if it was something that was up my alley at some point, I'd schedule just to go, I'm here and we gotta talk about this.
What you brought up, and I was like, it's so true. No matter what stance you take, no matter what you try to do or put out there, whatever, someone is going to find a reason to tell you that it sucks, you know?
Yep.
Like, you could be like giving food to dying children and saving their lives. And they'll have some like, yeah, well, what about the...
Yeah, well, you're privileged enough to be able to do that. What about people who can't? And it's like, Jesus, I mean, it's so true. But I've experienced that a little bit more lately. I've been opening myself up to that by running these ads and things like that. And I think it's good because I do know, you know, the more attention you have, in whatever degree that is, right, you're going to face more of that. And it's like, I have to be able to learn what things are worth my time and what things aren't. And there's been a few things recently that I've posted and a friend, but again, this is the correct way to do it, where like a friend would message me and go, hey, there's also this piece of information that you might want to check out that might inform like what you said or your opinion, right? So they're just offering up what they know. And so, and that's to me where I'm like, yeah, that's how you share information. You don't go, I saw you posted this dumb thing, you big fat idiot. Like, you know what I mean? It's like being like, hey, this is also a part of the conversation. And I'm like, thank you so much. And my friends that have done that, I've reposted their information being like, hey, my friend shared this with me too, because I would want somebody, I think, to do that for me if I felt like I was really just sharing information. But yeah, the need to like, because there was also another person, there was an ad that I ran, and it was about not working with people that you don't trust.
Yeah.
And I think this gentleman, he was a healer, black guy, and he had said, you know, what about, and was kind of talking about that of a place of privilege,
Right.
and was saying, and I was like, you know, that was very smart, because I do really try to be aware. I do try to be aware of my privilege when I'm posting these things, especially because wellness and mental health is like so whitewashed,
Yeah,
right?
you didn't finish saying what he said. He was, remember we talked about this. He was saying sometimes you don't have the privilege to choose to not work with people you don't trust.
Correct. And
then so you were responding.
Right. Well, and then he said, do you feel like this sounds slightly privileged? Which again, that was not coming for me. He was simply as another like healer and worker with potentially a different background than me, just because, you know, he's black and I'm white doesn't mean we could have the same, you know, I'm not making assumptions. But again, I have a huge, it's very much in my awareness of if I want to do this work, I want to do it all encompassing, but I can only share from my perspective, but still being aware. And so it opened up this beautiful dialogue, and I was like, you're absolutely right. Said even in my own experience, as much of the privilege I've had, there's been plenty of jobs that I've had to work or take simply because like bills got to get paid, right? And I was like, this is more of when we're in the position, and also knowing that like these are just simple ways to exercise our ability to not put ourselves in positions with people that we don't trust, because we do it in romantic relationships all the time. And romantic relationships aren't about privilege. Those are our choices.
I mean, thank
but
God
I thought it was
those
cool.
days are
And,
behind us.
but once I, you know, responded and I really took some time to think about what he said, and I responded back, and like, you know, I think I just got like this emoji, and he was like, right on, like good chat or something.
That is an intelligent discussion of.
But that's what I mean. So I do. There is a balance of there's folks that I've met now, we follow each other or whatever, and like, you know, there are people that are asking questions, you know, and I have to not, you know, it still always stings when you kind of feel like somebody, for lack of a better word, like comes for you, you know, but I have to kind of slow down and go, wait a minute, you don't know everything. Let's think about what this person said. So I'm learning a lot and growing in that way. But yeah, with people like Bobby, it's too funny.
So I want to, are we done?
I'm done.
Okay.
Yeah. I think everybody got it.
You really got work, man. That
I think most people have stopped listening. Okay.
So I wanted to pivot one more time for another thing, because
Love a good pivot.
yeah, you know, we'll just pivot. You know, the pivoting is riveting. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Scott didn't like it either. He just gave me a whatever.
Well,
dude.
all you do is like say weird puns in our house all the time, and then get mad that Scott and I aren't like,
I don't
yay!
get mad. I just think they deserve a little more credit than, you know, Jonah's going to love it. My son is going to think I'm so funny until he's about 12 and then be like, oh, Dad, this is
He's
stupid.
just practicing
Yeah.
for when Jonah gets here.
That's true.
I mean, at least I'm
Practicing
not.
the corny dad jokes, you know.
I'm going to crush on corny dad jokes. Anyway, okay, so we used to do a segment called Rachel Learns the News. It was like an official segment where I would like pull up headlines and we would riff on them. But now that it's like way more conversational, I just like throw out news that I find to you. So I saw a great story. So the GameStop thing's a little bit old now, but one thing I thought was fun, and I would love to hear like because you know, your sort of like spiritual, esoteric thoughts on like this thing.
Sure.
So there was one kid, I don't know how old he was, like somewhere between like late teens, early 20s, like pretty young. He made like $30,000 off the GameStop situation. And then he decided what a good thing to do, because he's like, you know, I don't deserve to like have all this money. Or he just was like, I need to do something good with it. So he went to GameStop and bought a ton of like Nintendo handheld games and donated them to Children's Hospital, so that the kids there could have these Nintendos. So it helped GameStop and kids who are literally like recovering from cancer treatment.
Oh my God, you cannot. That makes me cry.
Look at you right now, right?
That's so. No, I think that is so beautiful, and I think that we could all afford to be a little bit more like that.
Well, what I love too is he was like, listen, like I made all this money kind of overnight. I'm keeping some for myself, but a lot of it, I want to do something to help. So I'm going to go to the company that helped me do, like, let me support GameStop and buy a bunch of Nintendo DS. Nintendo DS is like a handheld thing, right, Scott? Yeah. And so, and then it just to me is like, man, and what great PR for this kid, GameStop, and it's like, how easy would it have been for these hedge funds to just do more of that, right? Like, we wouldn't hate them so much if they're just like, hey, like 10% of what we make, we're always going to like do these big charitable, like grand gestures. But as far as I know, they don't do that stuff.
But that's the thing I can't figure out, and where I get so like from my kind of like consulting brain or marketing brain, like I would be like, okay, so with Bezos, and it was like Bezos steps down as CEO from Amazon, and I'm like, if everybody didn't see that coming from a mile away, do you know how many meetings they had of being like, so Bezos, everybody's about to come for you, okay? How can we get you out of the way?
Smart.
Like, and a few people were like, whoa, this is crazy. I'm like, no, it's not. Homie knows that people are about to come for him. He knows that that the majority is calling for more restrictions or tax reform on the billionaire class. What he's doing is it's cloak and dagger.
Yeah.
Oh, now I'm just going to move positions, still have just as much power,
I think
but
he's
have
like,
more ability to hide my money.
He's like the chief executive of the board of Amazon or some other, right? You know what it actually, now that we're talking about it, reminds me of when you would probably remember this better than I do because I wasn't paying that close of attention, but when the British royal family like rebranded itself because they saw like the monarchs of like the other countries in Europe like getting overthrown and executed. So they're like, all right, we need to do something to keep the people on our side, but still basically be in charge, right? Isn't that what happened?
Yeah. So it was more of like, where they started like going out and being around people more. And like, there was like this huge insurgence of like, they let cameras come into the White House, into Buckingham Palace. And like, this whole, which again, from a marketing standpoint, it's like, save your ship. But so anyway, Bezos was just one example where it's like, to me with hedge fund companies and all these people where it's like, you don't want people to come for you, even if you're faking it, even if you're donating $10 billion so that people will leave you the F alone and people then will just go, oh, they're so philanthropic. And then you can go back to being just like, a greedy asshole. Give us $10 billion.
Well, it was just so interesting. So yes, on that note, right? Like, so this kid, he profited $30K. I don't know exactly how much he donated, but let's just say it was like 10%, 3K, sure. Right? 3K. I mean, $30K is a lot to like some young kid.
Just that his instinct was to give back. That's the thing that I think, because again, we talked about this last week where I was saying, I really think again from this like spiritual standpoint of like, the macro lens that I try to look at things, which is to me, greed is, or needing to be the best or have the most money or whatever, is simply, to me, it boils down to insecurity and feeling a lack mentality.
Yeah.
Because people who feel like abundant and people who give back, and that doesn't mean like, from the Bible of like sell all of your possessions and just, it doesn't mean not having anything for the sake of other people having things.
Sure.
I mean, certainly, taking care of like your own needs and your family's needs and having nice things, there's nothing wrong with that. But knowing that you can give back and be helpful and know that there's enough for you, that to me is security. That shows me that someone feels secure within themselves and believes that there's enough to go around.
Yeah, but I wonder why. I mean, I kind of know why, but like why that isn't more commonplace.
Because people are insecure. We don't teach people how to be secure within themselves. The fact that
that should be a class in school.
The fact that I'm talking about these things and it's still being labeled as like spiritual or woo-woo to me is like that's the problem.
Yeah,
that is the problem.
You know what's so funny? We focus so much on having like job security, but nobody thinks about like identity security.
No.
Unless it's like identity theft.
And then
which almost happened to me. What?
I'm just so glad I picked you. Keep going.
Well, first of all, it was a mutual picking. It wasn't like I'm just saying. No, remember Amex? Hey, shout out to Amex, by the way. Somebody tried to like fraudulent.
To make a fraudulent charge.
Yeah, on my card for like a few $100s at Walgreens of all
In
places.
Seattle.
Yeah, in Seattle. They texted me. They're like, "Did you try to spend $250 at Walgreens in Seattle?" I'm like, "No," and they called me right away. But like, so on that tangent though, to your point, we only care about like security around things like, oh, I want to make sure like my job is secure, my finances are secure, but we don't do any sort of like life preparation for like, what about like my like emotional intelligence and identity is like who I am. Like,
well, and this is a macro thing, and I say this gently. I think a lot of that is because the basis of our society is patriarchal. So we didn't, okay. I think that we've done ourselves a disservice. We've also done men a disservice of not teaching about having a real sense of identity and being rooted in who you are. And then from there, allowing yourself to flourish, because it should be security in who you are first, your values, how do you feel? Do you feel that you have integrity? Do you have self-esteem? Like all of those things are such building blocks, because everything else around you, as we've seen in 2020, can go away at any moment. Yeah. Like nothing is guaranteed. And so, you know, the fact that, the more that I keep talking and teaching about these things and it's still being labeled as like, you know, it's like,
I don't know if I'd say it's labeled as, I'll just speak for myself, for example, right? Like I am just now coming around to I was never anti-therapy for anybody or anything like that, but I just hadn't I've never been to therapy. I haven't felt like I personally have needed it necessarily, but I used to, and I still do a tiny bit, but I'm better about it now. When someone mentions like, oh, I saw my therapist, my brain is like, oh, there's something wrong with this person. That's like it's not like wrong, like they're bad, I can't be around them, but like, oh, they need to be fixed. Like, does that make sense? Like, I just...
Sure.
So, and I guess, you know, I don't know if we need to like change the stigma around seeing a therapist or what, but I just always imagine like, oh, you see a therapist when like horrific trauma has happened to you.
I mean, to me, when somebody tells me that they go to therapy, I'm like, I would like to be friends with that person, because only because to me, it shows a sign of like either there is something going on and they have the awareness that they need help, or they're aware enough of their emotions that they're seeking out those skills. Right. Because to me, in the time I've spent in therapy, it was about skill building. It's about, you know, because there's skills like you said.
That's so interesting. Because skill building to me, it's like, I'm going to take a class on learning the stock market, you know?
But that's what therapy is. It's about like, oh, I never learned how to set boundaries with my family, right? Sure. Like if that's when, and it's like, you know, my family has this pattern of toxic behavior. I no longer want to participate in it. I don't know, you know, what do I do? Because I still love my family. How do I go participate?
See,
right?
And
that's like, that's just like one example, right? And then you could go and somebody can help you learn. Here are ways to set boundaries for yourself so that you can engage and be with your family who you love and also take care of yourself.
I'm thinking about
Your skills.
No, I understand that. I'm realizing like if I went to therapy, my concern is that I would end up wanting to rant about like whatever things in the news are going on that I'm upset about and not like deal with like actual, I don't know. I mean, I know you've said like you should go and you might enjoy it, but
I don't think that you would enjoy it. I think it might open up things for you that might be helpful for you to look at them in a different way. But I've told you where I was like, if you were ever to go, you really do need to find like, you know, a very kind of like masculine, brawny man that you can see yourself in, because I guess. No, but I'm just saying, and I think that's true for anybody.
I don't respect people solely because I think
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying if you could go and be with somebody that you see yourself in, it wouldn't feel... You wouldn't feel like you're being asked to do something silly. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like...
Yeah, I guess, sure.
I mean, I also don't... I don't know, this has become like Rachel convinces Alex to go to therapy. But I would say, you know, and I would say even like emotional modulation, I feel like that's always something that I say about you is like, as fixed as you are in certain things, you're incredibly open-minded. Like if you do find that there's a certain system or something that works better, you have no problem.
Well, I love efficiency.
That's true.
I love efficiency, practicality, logic, things that are just rooted in like, oh, that's better.
But that's also so much where people talk about people are either logical or emotional. And I'm like, dude, I think people, if you could really learn how to lead from a place of like, okay, I'm feeling this. And then it's always logical, not always, but most of the time it's logical as to why you're feeling a certain way. But when you don't know that, it feels like it's illogical. Like when I was in a relationship with somebody I had no business being in, and I had all these feelings, and I'm like, but I can't figure it out. And it's like, yes, you can. The logical answer is you feel crazy because you're living with somebody in an environment that's making you feel crazy.
Well, I will say one thing that you've really, not that I won't say you opened my eyes to it because it's stuff that I kind of already knew, but I understand it in a better way now, is appreciating your like internal instincts alarm bells. Because I've had times in the past where I kind of knew deep down like that was not a good idea or bad idea, whatever, and it came true, and I just like understand. And it goes back to the point of like our dog Mila has like instincts that and I'm like, yeah, that's like real shit that like you should pay more attention to. And to your point, if you're a person who needs certain things in your life to dull that down, whether it be booze or anything that makes you kind of ignore that shit, it's bad. It's like it can really do damage long term.
Yeah, and we do it all the time.
So on that note, I know we got to wrap up soon, but this is gonna tie it all together with that. I'm totally team doula now. Now I was never anti-doula. I was just kind of like, all right, I guess. I never really knew much about them. I just figured you go to the hospital, you have a baby, and that's how it works, right? But we chatted with this woman, Stacy, who's great. And, I was like, after chatting with her, my instinct was just to trust you on that completely. But I was like, she seems like she's, like really actually like going to be good at this. Not someone who's just, because there's so many people in that world that can sell you bullshit,
Yeah.
With whether it's doulas or life coaches.
Oh yeah. It's all, yeah. I mean, it's
right.
Yeah.
Like I won't call this person out, but there's someone in my past who, I'm not really friends with, but like we had some kind of connection in the past. And this,
ooh, tell us more about it.
And this person is now like doing like life and career coaching.
Oh God.
And it's like, you don't even have your own. Well, this isn't fair to say because I don't know them anymore. But at the time I was like, you didn't even have your own life together. Like what?
They probably don't.
Anyway,
I say that, yet I'm a vastly different person than who I was.
It doesn't matter. I'm not going to say their name or anything. But my point is,
say it.
No.
Out them.
Stop. Can I say our doula's name on the?
Yeah, of
So
course.
Stacy Blackwell, dude, shout out.
Yeah, at Modern Doula LA. She's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, if you need a doula in LA. Now again, like I said, with things like that, I'm not like, we don't need that. I'm a man, I'll figure it out. I'm not like that at all, as you know. I'm just more like, I don't know, like I didn't even consider it. But it really opened my eyes to like, oh yeah, like this is such an incredibly complicated and stressful and beautiful and terrifying thing that's happening, mostly to you, but to me too, by proxy. Why wouldn't you have like a coach that walks you through? And once I understood because in my mind I was like thinking like, oh, is the doula just there like in the room like, all right, keep going. But it's like, oh no, like they really are walking you through all the things. And when the switch went off in my brain, and I was like, now I get it. When Stacy was like, look, here's the deal. Hospitals and doctors and nurses are all wonderful, important. They have a great job and we need them. But remember, the hospital is a business and the business is there to make money. So here's some things to keep in mind, how they might try and upsell you in a moment of like, I'm stressed and overwhelmed. And I was like, Stacy, now you're speaking my language. Like even little things where I was asking her questions because I didn't even think about it, but I realized as you were talking to her, I was just like, oh, my only experience around birth and like hospitals in general is just what I've seen in the movies. I've spent like almost no time in hospitals, and I've definitely not spent any time around like birthing stuff, right? So then I was asking like, yeah, so like after the baby's born and they do that thing where they take him away, and she's like, no, you can stay with the kid. I was like, really? I don't have to.
Well, she goes, no one should be taking your baby.
And I was like, yeah, I would really prefer that they don't just like take my son into one of those little like, Tupperware things into the whatever it's called. I want to stay with him. This is my legacy. He's my son. Yeah. He's the only Gettlin next in line.
Well, I feel, my instinct is that I'm obviously going to be like a barrel of emotions when they first hand him to me. But I also feel like I am so already in tune with what that feeling is going to be like. Like there's almost I know it's going to be so overwhelming that I'm almost wanting to feel that feeling now so it doesn't feel so overwhelming. But I feel like for you, because you're not growing him, that until like when you hold him, it's like going to be all of that at once.
Well,
and you're going to be like, I mean, yeah.
The first time recently that I had like even a moment of like, oh, this is what it'll be like is I stopped by my old gig at the bike shop and I saw my boss there, and Danny had a baby boy not quite a year ago, but close, and handed me his kid to hold him, and I was holding his son. I was like, wow. And I like had that moment of like, I'm holding this adorable, beautiful little boy, and he's
His son
like
is so cute.
giggling at me. And I'm like, man, yeah, like this is like, you know, but a lot of my friends who've had kids have kind of prepped me being like, don't worry if like the first 6 months you don't have that kind of connection you think you're going to have, because I guess the way their brains develop in that first kind of 6-month window, they really only care about like feeding from your breasts, sleeping. And there's like, it takes like, you're not going to like recognize my face.
They don't have like a ton of personality at 2 weeks old. We're not going to be home with them and they're going to be like, this is entertaining.
So on that note, I hope this has been entertaining. You know, we were kind of all over the place this episode. We talked about the Super Bowl, talked about Serena Williams.
I'm actually
doulas.
surprised we talked about emotional intelligence for as long as we did.
Yeah, well, you know, it's a recurring theme on this podcast. Guys, I've been Alex Gettlin.
I've been Rachel LaForce.
You can see us here every Monday, live, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. You can follow Common Ground Morning Show on Facebook or on YouTube. It's our just production company page, Skewed Orbit. A lot of fun stuff coming there from Tracy and other stuff. And, you know, as always, if you're listening to the audio, we love it. Just if you could subscribe on Spotify, leave a review on Apple. It really, really, really helps us out. And, yeah, we'll see you next week.
Have a great week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.